What's going on, YouTube? Culturedog Sam Hatch back here with the last five in this particular series, at least, of 80s top 10 videos. And the next time, in the last video in this series, I'll give you a little bit of a hint at some of the things I left off that we'll be saving for the next series. But I have to wrap this up because, you know, it's time for all the Halloween films. I'm going to do the usual 31 horror/Halloween films in the month of October challenge. So I got to get ready for that, and we got to leave some fat for the next series for sure. But this time we're going to rock comedy. So we're going to try and be as quick as possible, tear through these last five lists, and see what we have. And for comedy, as I mentioned before in the previous video, this is going for more impact over quality. Not to say that these aren't quality films, but they're films that impacted me. So this isn't an official list of the best films based on, you know, the properties agreed upon by film aficionados as to what pertains as a quality film. These are the films that kicked my ass either in the 80s or relatively close to the 80s and maintained the biggest, you know, impact on myself and my feeble mind. So yeah, there we go. We're gonna do comedies, and they don't necessarily have to be laugh out loud every minute comedy. It doesn't have to be loaded with pratfalls and poop jokes, etc. It's gonna be a mix of things, and I say that because number 10 leans more on the romantic drama side of things, but it is Valley Girl. And Valley Girl is, you know, kind of dollars to donuts, maybe even better than Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It definitely is in terms of its soundtrack, which is a lot hipper. You know, it has Men at Work and Modern English and the Plimsolls and some really great songs on it. And it's a little bit more connected with its audience than Fast Times at Ridgemont High was, which had too many, old guys trying to push like a 70s aesthetic onto it because that's what sells. So there was a little bit more of a struggle you could kind of sense within Fast Times, whereas Valley Girl, it seemed a pointless film because, from an outsider's viewpoint, it seemed like, someone's making a movie adaptation of Moon Unit Zappa's Novelty Song, which we used to always listen to at pizza joints and the 45 machines on the table. Valley Girl. And yeah, it'd be like someone making a Pac-Man Fever movie. It's like, yeah, whatever. But the film, it had so much more heart and just great characters. Deborah Foreman is fantastic in it. E.G. Daly in there. Nicolas Cage himself is fantastic in the film. And it's just got a great, Romeo and Juliet dynamic, star-crossed lovers kind of thing. And yeah, just a lot of fun. And one of my favorite quotes of all time, which is when Nicolas Cage is outside the movie theater and the guy asks him if the film is in 3D, and he says, "No, but your face is." Great stuff. So Valley Girl. And number 10. Number 9 hasn't probably stood the test of time as well as some of these other films on the list, but it was very important to me because I mentioned in earlier videos how I was exposed to slasher films and just some video nasties at a pretty early, tender age. So when I saw Student Bodies for the first time, I saw it by myself, strangely, on cable at late at night. And it was one of those interesting things because I knew what it was lampooning. I was too young to know what it was lampooning, but I did. And it was strange because it very much felt like a movie for myself because I wanted to share it with somebody. I wanted to tell my parents about it, but they were upstairs and they didn't really care. And they might not have even watched. I think my dad had seen Halloween. I think he saw that in the theaters. But yeah, I got it, and I was excited about that. And on the other hand, too, it was also fun to see something that had, terrified me at the time being kind of poked fun at and proved that you can, live through a horror film and kind of take it lightly if you want. But yeah, I never looked at Horsehead Bookends the same way after this film. And just the opening, I thought it was the cleverest thing ever when the film established that it's on Jamie Lee Curtis's birthday and the killer trying to pick through all his weapons and picks up like a paper clip, etc. It's pretty hokey, but I freaking loved Student Body. So that's coming in at number 9. Number 8 is a film I probably saw far too many times, quoted far too many times. And that's, this time we're doing a send-up of 1930s-style gangster films. And it's Johnny Dangerously. Michael Keaton just crushing it in the film. Joe Piscopo is great in there as well. If I had $1 for every time I said, Fargan Ice Hole or put your bells in a sling or, any number of those Johnny Dangerously quotes, I'd be a rich man. And it had the exciting film within the film, the health video in there too, which is great stuff. And yeah, as silly as it is, I just love the bits, where they're on the run from the law and they keep peeling like contact paper off their car, and the police dispatch keeps repeating, I repeat, the APB is now calling all cars to attention. Watch out for a car covered in duckies and bunnies. I repeat, it is now duckies and bunnies. And then I had the grapevine scene too, where the word getting passed along keeps getting distorted along the way. And then just everything. It's so much fun. Johnny Dangerously. Since we're keeping our comedy a little broad at the moment, it's funny, I was just thinking about this film as well. Number 7, UHF. I saw UHF in the theaters. Who wants to touch me? Anybody? Yeah. No. All right. Anyways, UHF was great. I'm a big, Weird Al Yankovic fan. Had been at the time already, so it was a no-brainer to go see his first major motion picture. So many quotes. Geddy Watanabe's fantastic in it. Michael Richards, Stanley Spadowski is such a iconic character. Who Wants to Drink from the Fire Hose? The Candy Bird head story dream is something I've quoted so many times. So many great Stanley Spadowski-isms, but great Weird Al-isms as well. Fun soundtrack, and little bits like Conan the Librarian are in there as well. And, turtles sticking to the ceiling. Twinkie Wiener sandwiches, Wheel of Fish. Oh, man. I'm thinking of something orange. Something orange. It's UHF. Number 6 is another film I watched far too many times on cable. And I obviously was too young to drink, but I somehow tapped into, probably because it reminded me of my dad and his buddy at times. It reminded me of them, and they're so lovable, the main characters in this film. It's Bob and Doug McKenzie in the spin-off of SCTV's characters in the film Strange Brew. And I was not Canadian, I was not an alcoholic, but I loved these dudes, and I loved them trying to scam people into giving them free beer. I had a friend, he was a cop, and he puked, and he said, "Come here, get free beer or else." It's a bizarre take on Hamlet, a loose take on Hamlet. Max von Sydow, they got drafted into the film as well. A bunch of lovable hosers from Canada that just want to drink beer and are, constantly without a job and looked down upon by parental units, end up getting a job at the Elsinore Brewery and discover a mystery along the way. Fantastic stuff, and completely over the top, especially when Rick Moranis drinks so much beer that he explodes into this giant balloon-like character and manages to save the day because he pees so long and puts out a fire. And then their dog, so many great bits in this film. Yeah, and it's got hockey in it too, of course. And I know, Strange Brew. It's a modern North American classic. Number 5 is one of those great films that I saw on cable. One of those situations where my mom had me at my grandfather's house, and I managed to start watching a movie before anybody noticed what I was watching on HBO, and then my mom came home, but then her and my uncle were kind of so into watching it anyways, they kind of overlooked the fact that I was in the room, so I was like, yes, indulge your curiosity while I silently, invisibly here in the corner, watch freaking Caddyshack. Caddyshack was, a huge influence on me as a storyteller as well, because I, in school, would write these fan fiction tales, and then I would often read them aloud in class, so much so that other people would request them, so they wanted to know the further adventures of the Caddyshack crew. And and I didn't even know all the character names, so like Ted Knight was Ted Knight, and it's like Ted Knight comes in, and Ty, I think I would reference by name, and a few other characters. But Chevy Chase in the film, and everybody and their mother. Of course, Bill Murray and the Gopher. The Gopher, of course, made a huge impact on me. The Kenny Loggins song made a huge impact on me. Yeah, don't judge. I thought it was cool. Had a good jam. Had a good groove. But Caddyshack, I was too young to really understand a lot of it, so it's even better now as an adult. But Slobs versus the Snobs, man, it's great stuff. So that's number 5. Number 4, I just happened to get on Laserdisc recently, and I was psyched about that. Not to tell you what I got, because I'm going to show that in the upcoming Laserdisc Pickups video. Act surprised when I talk about that. But it's a film from, I don't even know how you pronounce it, Phil Joannou, Phil Joannou, known for a lot of music video work. But this was his first, as far as I know, first feature film. And I freaking loved it. and it's called 3 O'Clock High. And 3 O'Clock High was often viewed as like a sub-John Hughesian feature, but Casey Schmosko, man, he was in some good stuff. I particularly love this film, and it's another one of those, set in one day films. I love those. Your whole life can turn around in one day type of film, especially if they're a comedy as well. It's got so much going for it. The style is so over the top. At the time, this was as important to me as something like Evil Dead 2, what Sam Raimi was going for in terms of visuals and just aggressive editing and zooming and just interesting shots, etc. So it can seem a little self-indulgent now when you watch it, but really kicked my ass. It was bringing so much more to the table than a usual high school comedy would in terms of shot compositions and just pushing the boundaries. And I love some of the Tangerine Dream score stuff. There's a great bit at a high school pep rally that just turns insane, and it's just so bizarre. It's almost like the tunnel scene in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's just so abstract and strange and bizarre. But anyways, the film is essentially about a kid who's a bit of a nerd and is assigned for the school paper to write a piece about the newcomer, this kid Buddy Revell, who is the most terrifying person ever and is already being preceded by rumor and tales about how he has pretty much put people in hospitals left and right and has an issue with people touching him, etc. And then Jerry, of course, is immediately put on the wrong side of this kid's radar, and they are forced to fight at 3 o'clock. And so it's got this kind of high noon riff going on in it, but so much more underneath, and I freaking love it. 3 O'Clock High, it's fantastic. Number 3 is from the awesome Savage Steve Holland. Really imaginative comedies, and you mix a little John Cusack in there too, and you got a winner, and that's Better Off Dead. Sadly, I didn't see this in theaters. I wish I had, because it's amazing, and so many great moments in the film. It's about a guy, he's not a total loser, because he's got a super cool girlfriend, at least until she breaks up with him, and then ends up hooking up with the captain of the ski team. One of those scenarios. Everything that you've seen in Hot Tub Time Machine being parodied is from this film. But yeah, Lane Meyer, played by John Cusack, and Curtis Armstrong is fantastic as his de facto best buddy, and the little bits of stop motion claymation with Van Halen music playing is great. The soundtrack's great. Rupert Hine did a lot of the music, so Cy Kernan from The Fix doing some vocals on there as well. So it's super 80s. But yeah, it's this guy kind of falling for the weird French exchange student that's staying with the family across the street, unsuspecting of how weird and strange that family is. Not that Lane's family is that normal either. His mom is prone to creating all these strange concoctions for dinner that look like space aliens, and it's so much fun. Lane's little brother is great. Taylor Negron is great, a little bit in there, and then of course the $2 kid on the bike. It's just cinematic legend. Better Off Dead. Go see it now. Right now. Come back, watch this video later. Number 2, I saw multiple times in the theaters, and I was lucky enough to catch, before I was a film critic, I managed to snag preview tickets from a local radio station to go see it before it was released. And it was one of the best comedy experiences in a movie theater I've ever had. This movie was, it wasn't just making people laugh, it was absolutely destroying them. And it was making everyone laugh so freaking hard that you often could only hear every other joke because people were still dying from the first one. So yeah, I had to see it a couple times in the theater to kind of really get the full feel for it. And sadly, it was trying to kind of chase that high. The second time I saw it was maybe a Saturday at noon, so there was nobody in the theater. So it was like that buzz, that energy was gone. And so I saw it a couple other times in second run theaters, etc., that were a little bit more peppy. But yeah, I'll never forget that first time seeing Peewees Big Adventure, the first Tim Burton feature, and Paul Rubens crushing it as Pee Wee Herman. Danny Elfman's first feature score. Oh man, that Rube Goldberg scene in the beginning of the film with the Danny Elfman music is just changed cinema forever. So great, and so many great quotes. The Alamo in the basement. The sweater that you keep on knitting and knitting and knitting. There's so many just bits of just strange, bizarre humor and just kind of one-off little moments. Not quite manatee jokes, from Family Guy, etc. But, just like the Texas bit where he has to prove that he's in Texas to E.G. Daily. Again, in her third appearance, I think, on this list. Because she was also in Better Off Dead performing at a school dance. But when he has to prove to her that he's in Texas, so he starts, singing the stars and I had a big and bright. Well, everybody around him claps and finishes the song. Just little kind of bizarre moments like that. And and then it's had an interesting life on home video because of the open matte version, which ruins a lot of the sight gags and everything because you can clearly see how they're performed because it's not matted properly. It was interesting seeing that version on cable for so many times. But Peewees Big Adventure is a film I've seen countless times, and it's just still top notch quality material. So yes, the X1 is getting overheated. I gotta go tell you what number one is. Number one is my first R-rated film I saw in the theaters, officially, as far as my mom's concerned. My dad had already taken me to see plenty of other R-rated films and told me not to tell her, and I had already seen this film before I was allowed to go see this film as my first R-rated film. It's complicated, but it's The Blues Brothers. And I knew of The Blues Brothers. I really wasn't old. I knew enough to know that everybody I knew loved SNL at the time and National Lampoon and everyone involved in that scene. So I was keenly aware of it all going down, but I wasn't quite sure what it all meant. But I did know that I loved the Blues Brothers. I didn't even know the songs they were copying and referencing. I didn't really know anything about Cab Calloway. I didn't know much about anything that's going on in the film. But I knew that I loved the characters, and I knew that I loved the action and the over-the-top insanity of the film. And, it's got Illinois Nazis. It's got the most amount of cop cars I've ever seen crashed in a film. Killer cast, both traditional actors and comedians, but then you've got famous musicians also involved in the film and some great musical performances. It's one of those rare occasions where it's a quote-unquote musical, but it never took me out of the film. It just enhanced it. And John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd were just crushing it. Again, I mentioned quotes before. So many quotes in this thing. Quotes for days. And I just remember being in, maybe fourth grade or something, and drawing tanks and things on it and like trying to spell out Nazis and things like that. I didn't know the context of everything that was going on, but I knew that the film was amazing. And The Blues Brothers is fantastic and will always be my number one 80s comedy. Man, I can't believe I left Neighbors off this list. Damn it. Anyways, we'll chat below. 80s comedies. What do you got? Bring it to the table.